I think the only other change that I would say that I've seen in the marketplace has been private equity coming into the franchising world a lot heavier over the last handful of years. And so some of the dynamics and landscape changes have been driven by private equity coming in and professionalizing the businesses and requiring a lot more visibility and efficiency from an operations and financing standpoint. So that's obviously changed a lot of things. I think that'll only increase. Franchising is one of those industries that tends to be, if you don't have direct experience within it, you seem to be considered an outsider. And so it's really easy to keep people outside of it. But I think it's going to open up more and more. And I'm a big believer of having the right people in the right seats, regardless of their experience or industry tie-in. So that'll be a shifting, I think a continued shifting landscape that we'll see private equity in the space as well.
And hey guys, welcome to another episode of Reframe First. I'm Alexei, I'm the host of the podcast, and let me introduce our today's guest, Nick Pepitone from Franchise Performance Group, CEO for Franchise Performance Group. Hi Nick, it's great having you here.
Hello, hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so at Franchise Performance Group, from what I read, so from what I understand, you are providing a full service outsourced franchisee recruitment solution for franchisors. So which includes like business development, strategy, processes, hiring, training, all of that kind, like a long list of like services that you provide to help them succeed in their business. And could you tell us more about what you do at Franchise Performance Group and like what's your mission of the company is and what you do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. And yeah, ultimately, I'll start with kind of our mission at Franchise Performance Group is to promote responsible franchising, which we can kind of dive into what that actually means later on in the conversation. But as you mentioned, we're an outsourced franchise development firm. So we work with franchise concepts from as small as 10 to 20 units all the way to brands that are looking to scale to multiple thousand locations, whether that be across the US or internationally. And our sweet spot is on the digital lead generation and outsource sales, but we also do consulting based work around go-to-market strategy, market penetration, as well as kind of process design around some of those marketing and sales functions. So, a little bit different buckets. We try not to cater to everything and every single task, but we also have a plethora of experience and some really solid team members to be able to hit quite a few different areas.
Yeah, awesome. You mentioned like hundreds of entities. Are there big names there?
Yeah. We actually have a pretty solid list of over 150 clients that we've worked with through the years. So brands like Marco's Pizza, Pliables, Subway. So there's some definitely big brands in there, but also some of the most fun that we have are the concepts that are what we would consider an emerging brand, that they have a really strong regional presence and they're looking to scale into that next national brand. Obviously we love the big brand names, but also as the entrepreneur in all of us loves working with that small startup feel that is looking to be the next household name.
Awesome. And like, could you tell me like, I had never experienced with like franchises like with working one. So what does it take to like replicate your business in like 10 more locations? Like, so there are probably like a lot of processes involved.
Yeah, and there's quite a bit of processes involved. And I think this was what ties into that responsible franchising that I talked through with you is, there's over 4,000 franchise brands that are registered in the United States alone. And each year we see about a 10% turnover or churn in that, with an equal 10% added to the marketplace. And so you start from that very high top of funnel. But when you really drill down to it, the model, whether you're a quick service restaurant or a brick and mortar travel agency, whatever the concept might be, it comes down to what that model and how can it be replicated and what systems and infrastructure are in place. And so that's what a lot of the time that myself and our team look at analyzing, not only with our existing clients, but also the prospective clients that we interact with on a daily basis, we're very particular about what type of infrastructure, what type of investment, and what type of people are in that organization, because those are the items that really dictate the long-term success of an individual brand.
Franchises are all about really strict guidelines and really strict processes, operations. Is it so, or can it be like different from location to location? Like I know McDonald's.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and McDonald's is, that's the poster child for franchises, right? Because there's, very specific standard operating procedures all the way from, how to invoice a customer or pay an invoice all the way to, making a number one with cheese. And so I think that's where a lot of franchise concepts, as the growth engine begins and they really start to see the opportunity to scale, a lot of the time and attention and detail that it takes are really where, that's what truly unlocks that growth capability and the ability to replicate and provide consistency. But it's also an area, obviously, that requires a lot of investment and time from the franchisor brands. And so that's why, one of the first questions we ask prospective clients is, what does your war chest look like from an investment standpoint? How much dry powder do you have to be able to do this the right way? Because it's always going to take a lot more time and capital than you expect. And if you come in and saying, hey, we're going to rub two pennies together to get this done, I'll probably be the first one to tell you, hey, it's probably not going to be the outcome you want.
Yeah. And when those like the prospects come to you, when they have like already a few entities working and they want to like start like outsourcing the next ones, or is like one single like point on some restaurant, okay, I want to start scaling. So what's the point when they come to you?
Yeah. So, and we get brands that come to us across all different stages. I mean, just this past week, I had meetings with a donut concept that already has 400 locations and they're looking to take it to the next level. And then just yesterday, had a conversation with a gentleman who he has one location that he owns. He has one franchise location, and that's the part that he's at. And so that's the really cool part about my role, is being able to see it from all parts of the spectrum of growth. But we also, we try to be realistic in the value that we can provide our clients. And so our internal skill set and our capabilities are much more geared for that 400 unit client, just based on our experience, compared to that single unit that's looking to scale. But that doesn't mean that we can't guide them in and provide some pro bono recommendations, but also, still open the door, because just because there's not an opportunity to work together today, obviously we want to, have that opportunity down the road, and love to see brands that scale into, the 50, 100, 200, unit regional concepts that we all know and enjoy.
And what are the like typical industries like that you work with? Is it like
Yeah, so we see it across the board. I would tell you that the most consistent and steady, and really the largest player in the franchising industry, is what we would call QSR concepts, so quick service restaurants. And so these would be not necessarily your fast foods like the McDonald's or Taco Bell's. They're more in inline retail locations, 1,500 square feet. They have very ease of ordering and access, quick delivery time of food. And so this would be, I would say probably 60 to 65% of the businesses that we interact with on a regular basis. But then we also, I mentioned earlier, travel agencies. We do a lot of blue service, home services type of concepts. So, that's the beauty of, the franchising industry, is, again, there's obviously an end client and an end product that you're serving to the community. But at the end of the day, the product that the franchisor is supplying is actually the business model itself. And that's where, we kind of step in, is to assist in execution of that business model, and also provide, our guidance and recommendations on how that model should be structured for that individual brand.
yeah, from what I know, like heard, like you have like 100+ clients and you provide like services in pretty much every aspect of the business, like of their own. So you should have quite a significant team that's doing that.
Well, so just to clarify, so the 150 is over a 23-year period. So we typically, we're typically around, on average, 15, 20 clients at any one time that we manage.
but still, you handle like locations, like all the infrastructure, and then hiring and and then financial services. So it's quite a probably the supply chain. Is it right? Or do you understand it right?
Well, so what will kind of the breaking apart of what I would call our deliverables and then what our design work. So on the deliverable side of what we're executing on a daily basis is primarily on the digital marketing and sales of the franchise concepts. Then kind of looking at our consulting business on more of the design side is, designing sales process, but also, the infrastructure and recommended franchisee, franchisor type of responsibilities, relationships, um, because those are, it's a very much so a relationship business. Um, Once you onboard over hundreds of franchisees, so that's a big part of it. So, um, as far as franchise performance groups execution, really our bread and butter is the sales and marketing components within the franchising industry.
And like, what is a maybe the like typical like pain points that like as every franchise goes through when they try to scale? At some point,
Yeah,
it just breaks. So like every business breaks at a certain point when it scales too much,
right.
and
Yep.
that's
Yeah,
probably
I would say
the job to help them and fix.
Yep. And I would say the two biggest kind of pain points that we hear on a daily basis is number one, the things that got them there to the point that they're at aren't working to get them to the next level. And so the way that they marketed, the way that they ran their sales process, the people who they had, executing on those tasks aren't necessarily the people, the processes, or the systems. They're going to get them to the next stage. So obviously, talking through and understanding why that is, how they currently are executing, and offering some strategic insights into that. And then the second kind of aspect to breaking under growth that we see is again the responsible franchising. We jokingly say not this isn't a franchise performance group saying, this is a Nick Pepitone saying, but I know people in the industry, and the joke has always been the easiest thing in franchising is actually to sell a franchise, but the hardest thing to do is actually get them open and maintain success and as you scale. And so if you think about a concept that has 20 to 30 units. Obviously, yes, 20 to 30 is a solid number, but it's a lot easier to get your arms around and ensure consistency of product or service, consistency of branding versus, when you get to 150, 200. And so it's always looking out ahead of really from an infrastructure and capital standpoint from a brand, looking at where they want to go and always being ahead of that curve and really setting the tone and making the timing right, as opposed to waiting for the right timing to make certain decisions around hiring and investment.
You mean in the mother company? Like, okay, again, out of curiosity, whose pain is like, is it the most like of the franchisor or franchisee when opening in the location? So, like, who works most? The guy who runs the local entity or the parent company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's where our sales team. So when we do the outsourced sales, we're actually handling those interactions with those local operators who are interested in acquiring a franchise concept, becoming the owner, and really diving in. And so I think where the biggest discrepancy we see on that side is the expectation of what it looks like to be a business owner, and small business owner specifically. I think in today's day and age, in the social media, you see passive income, own a business, mailbox money. And at the end of the day, that's just, there's no free lunch in life, right? And so it's making sure that we're attracting and selling franchises to the right type of operators who understand the work that goes into not only learning the brand, learning the product, but also then hiring, training, retaining a solid staff at the local level. So I never discount the amount of work that goes into the franchisee side. Actually, I started in the franchising industry as a franchisee myself. So I owned a quick service juice and smoothie bar, and I was in my juice bar at 2 a.m, cold pressing juices, and then back in at 7 a.m, mopping floors and cleaning toilets. So yeah, that is, it's definitely hard work on that side. But on the franchisor side, obviously there's a lot of work that goes into building these out, and then also again, the personal connection that goes into, the franchises that they sell, they have a vested interest in those franchisees being successful. Yes, obviously from a business standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, especially early on in these brands, the individuals that you're selling franchises to are making significant bets on the brand and the people, and you want to make them feel justified and feel like they made a good decision. And so the franchisor side, maybe the day-to-day work, they might not be sweeping floors and cleaning toilets, but there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress with the weight of trying to grow the brand and make people feel validated in their choice.
Yeah, that was my question that you already answered. Like, I was about to ask you, is it true that it's like semi-absent business, but like you just buy it and forget?
And some of our clients who we work with now might be saying, Nick, why don't say this, don't put this out. But it's just, I've never been the believer of, semi-passive. My dad grew up in New Orleans, and so Mardi Gras parades are big time there. And my dad's favorite saying is, you're either in the parade or you're not. And, so when I look at semi-passive, especially in the franchising industry, I'm always a little skeptical. Not to say that they're not out there. But I would say, especially to start, the first, I'd say 24 to 36 months. Yeah, I look at every investment and opportunity as an active ownership position. You might not necessarily be the one serving behind the counter or carrying out the home service yourself personally, but there's some form of engagement and accountability that the owner takes on in the early stages to make sure that again, the consistency of product, the consistency of branding in the marketplace is being held because, ultimately what you're buying in a franchise is the business model, and the franchisee, it needs to make sure that they're executing that each day until they can, step back. Obviously the goal is in every franchise concept, the last thing we would want is someone to acquire a franchise and then for the life of the 10-year franchise agreement be having to work, 8 hours a week stressing about their business. It's definitely not the goal, but, having a short-term vision of what it looks like from an investment of time is definitely warranted.
And with regards with like current trends and towards like efficiencies, automations and stuff, do like franchisees expect or demand from the parent company like to be operationally efficient and like, operationally excellent as
Yes.
what's in play? Do you maybe have some examples how it works, like in terms of like automating every single step of the process?
Yeah. So, and it's really across all functions of the business where that expectation comes in. The first stages, I joke that franchisees don't really care about how efficient or automated your sales and marketing processes are to get other franchisees. That's not, in their purview, but, really once someone signs an agreement, is the day that they're looking for efficiency and automation. And it starts really from a real estate standpoint. So for those concepts that require a brick and mortar location. And so we've seen over the last really 10 years, but over the last 2 years, sophistication has really entered the real estate marketplace. And having platforms, we work with a platform called Site Zeus that does a great job that will run predictive analytics on certain markets across the country and really be able to pinpoint and identify what we call a heat map. So it can show us, the markets where based on our target demographics and target buyer profile, where the most, successful locations should be placed. And
Right.
then, we'll actually run predictive revenue models and cost of goods and labor metrics based on local data. So, that's a very specific example, just on the real estate, on the operations standpoint. I mentioned.
Excuse me, like, and how much could differ?
Yeah.
Like, could it differ in terms of revenue if you choose the wrong location? I believe it's significant.
Yeah, location, location, location. It's especially in, you know, when we talk about quick service restaurants specifically, making sure that you are in high traffic areas, high visibility areas, but also, the one thing that people don't think about is what the co-tenancy, so what other businesses surround me and what's going to attract people to the area. It's identifying whether you're a destination type concept. So something like a gym is going to be a destination concept where people, they might be coming to a specific shopping center to come work out. If I'm a non-destination type concept like the juice and smoothie bar I was with, I would say, hey, I want to be around as many gyms and yoga studios that are driving people to a specific location, but then they're a part of my target buyer demographic and they're already there. They might as well stop in, order a juice, order a burrito, whatever that might be, and being very mindful around um, those types of co-tenancy.
So you help companies provide this kind of intelligence. That sounds awesome. And
Yeah, so I joke. I say we don't provide the data. We have third-party partners. We know how to utilize the data. And for the clients that we work with on the sales side, our sales recruiters tap into this, and it's really helpful on both sides of the franchisor and franchisee landscape, because obviously better performing locations are producing higher revenue for the franchisor, but then that's also a way for us to predict success rates for franchisees. And again, going back to that personal connection that we make, when any person you sell a franchise to, you're rooting for them, you want them to do great. And if we know that, hey, this is a market that can actually do really well, and if we can find a location in this area, we feel pretty strong that we're setting this person up for success. So there's intangible benefits to feeling good about what you're doing as well.
awesome. And what else is there to automate? Like before I interrupted you, these
Yeah,
locations.
no, it's and don't feel bad for interrupting me. The real estate software that's out there have been many sleepless nights where I've just nerded out on it. And tying in, you can refine your searches based on so many data points. So don't feel bad for cutting me off. It's a very interesting topic that you could probably do a whole separate podcast on. But other areas, specifically are around ease of ordering. So we're in a time where people are on the go, and the expectation is people no longer want to park their car and have to get out and go wait in a line and wait for a product or a service to be delivered within a 20-minute time frame. People have the expectation of, I pull right up, I can stay in my car, it can be brought out to me. And so the age of, obviously, every concept having their own mobile app, delivery service, curbside, are big proponents. It's the the reason why I bring that up is that also ties into the digital marketing side. And so what a lot of brands have recognized is, that customer data is gold. And if we can not only utilize our app and our mobile services to deliver a better product in a more efficient way, we can also tap into and really learn who our clients are, what their buying patterns are, where they're coming from, what other types of businesses are they attracted to, and be able to really pinpoint and target that buyer profile from a marketing standpoint and create the opportunity to reach more of those individuals.
Awesome. And like while you were talking about like optimizing like user behavior, not user like wasted time. Is there a niche or is there a market for like ordering like while you go, ordering on the go? I don't know. I will be there in 10 minutes. I want to just pick up.
hmm Yeah, and it's obviously we all know the third-party delivery apps. They now offer where brands can actually white label their own service through a DoorDash and Uber Eats and those things. It's more outside of the four walls of ease than inside of the four walls. There are partners who can build out those services. One of the big players in the space is called Toast Point of Sale Systems. They're a publicly traded entity. They started out as simply just handling the point of sale software for quick service restaurants and full service restaurants, and have quickly scaled into really a service and software provider across the entire organization. And delivery and efficiency, even inventory controls have kind of creeped into their premise as well. So there's a lot of great tools that give the brands the capability to execute on it.
Yeah, interesting. With regards to like the trends, we touched a bit like about user behavior and stuff and automating everything. What else do you see in the market? Like it's like there is new generation of human beings, Gen Z, and there is also AI. Sure, AI cannot replace the waiter in the restaurant, but still, how does it touch you? And what?
Yeah, I would say one of the fascinating parts to our business that we've seen the biggest behavioral change over the last 10 years is the buyer journey when it comes to buying a franchise. So historically, what that process would look like is you would submit an inquiry to a brand, and there would be a gatekeeper at that brand who would have all of the information, all of the content, and really, you didn't hear a lot about it until you got on the phone with them. And so you were incentivized to, schedule pre-qualification and discovery calls, and you were at the mercy of what they were able to send you. And so in that system, the power balance was really held by the franchisor. They could dictate the flow of information. And what we've seen is, the buyer journey has become so much self-directed in the age of information and with everything being at our fingertips, and being able to research, but also, with the franchising industry becoming more regulated, more things becoming public knowledge and available, which is a good thing. And I want to make sure I point that out, that I'm all for, again, the responsible side of franchising. And so I want to make sure that, the buyers in our industry are extremely educated and understand what they're stepping into. But what it's turned into is, our clients, their content is what earns them conversations now. You used to be very able to have very little online and supply very little. Now, as we build websites for our clients and build downloadable content, it looks like a full-blown business plan, a 30-page downloadable ebook. We want to make sure that we are flooding the marketplace. We've done a lot of research and looked at what franchise buyers spend their time researching when researching a brand and how much time they spend. And so we very strategically place deep funnel research on websites and downloadable content so that when they are getting on the phone for those qualification calls and discovery calls, the conversation is much more guided based on their questions and comments on what they've already consumed, and then further education of the brand. And so it's been a massive shift in the industry, but I would say that it's also been a net positive for the industry, because I think a lot of the brands who warrant the interest from buyers receive it because their story gets told, and it's not just relying on a really good salesperson to run people through the funnel. Brands really have to earn the ability to speak with people.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And are there any marketplaces for franchises? If there are no, maybe we should build one.
Yeah. So, well,
Places you know a bit about franchises, we can combine
yeah.
it.
So I like the thinking, and the reason why I laugh. So our founder at Franchise Performance Group, Joe Matthews, he's shifted into a chief strategy officer role, and he's had this idea for years. And ultimately, the unfortunate part of franchising is it's an extremely inefficient marketplace. There is, when you look at going to buy a house or buy a car, there's places like Zillow or cars.com where you can go and, really refine down and learn and do research across the entire landscape, and then parse down on what options really fit your needs. In the franchising industry, while the individual brands, to my previous point, have to earn conversations based on their content, there's really no one place where a buyer or investor can go to really refine down and understand what brands are fitting their parameters. And so it's an idea we've kicked around at Franchise Performance Group. It would be a tall task. And obviously getting not only franchise, it's really both sides of the fence, getting franchisors and franchise buyers
Absolutely.
on board with it. And so it's definitely no small task, but it's something that's been in the back of our heads, because that's, at the end of the day, we want the brands that deserve to be at the top to continue to rise. And we want franchise buyers to be impacted in a positive way for leaping into the entrepreneurial realm and being rewarded for making the right decision and choosing responsible franchises.
Yeah, marketplaces is always a chicken and egg problem. You do not have buyers until you have sellers, and vice versa. And you just need to get rolling at some point. But you have a big plus that if you have a large list of contacts of franchisors already, which you can onboard into the platform.
Yep. Yes, we'll have to do a separate call where we could dive into it.
That sounds really interesting, and there's like a lot of interesting features that can be added, like of intelligence, like you mentioned, in terms of like where and like of like hit zones and all this kind of stuff. does it fit? Does it not fit? What the space requires? Whatever. I don't know. But it sounds, yeah, it sounds interesting. Yeah. Awesome. What other like trends do you see? Maybe in terms of AI, is there anything touching like this business, like AI marketing? I don't know, predictive staffing, chatbot supports, whatever that can embed it
Yeah,
into.
yeah, I would say our stance at Franchise Performance Group on AI is, especially on the content side. So when we're producing copywriting and content for our clients, we want to utilize AI, but we don't want to depend on it. Because the franchise buyer can see that, they recognize that there's still a personal touch that is required for an investment of this size. But there's also platforms that we utilize just from an operational standpoint that utilize technology to make us more efficient and increase automation. I'll be really interested to see where AI takes the franchising industry as a whole. I've got a lot of thoughts on AI. I think those folks who have their heads buried in the sand and want to deny that it's going to be this thing that we have to learn are going to be in trouble. I don't necessarily think that it's going to take over our lives. At least that's what I hope not. I'm a believer of you have to be open and willing to learn it and utilize it, because the folks who are able to leverage it are going to be a leg up. And so that's internally, we're our Monday meetings, we have a portion of it where we're constantly talking about, hey, what are some new ideas? What are some new platforms? What can we utilize internally? What can we utilize for our clients? Because I think it can definitely tap into some streamlined operations for us personally, but also obviously for the services that we provide.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I lost you for a second.
Yep.
That's fine. In terms of AI, I absolutely agree with you. It's kind of a tool, it's a very powerful tool. And like in the age of industrial revolution, people who could leverage of new tools that were like born like that age, they could benefit a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goods still were produced, but they were produced more efficiently and with better. And those who couldn't like adapt, they failed. Probably everybody at certain points will have to adapt to the change, to the new
Exactly.
tools.
I was just speaking with a good friend of mine who runs a business here in Texas, and he was telling me he just launched a clone of himself. So I'm interested to hear the results. He said he got pinged that it already hit his budget within the first 2 hours of work. So I'm waiting to see what the results are. I'm very intrigued on what those capabilities are.
Yeah, that's interesting. With regards to like the franchise performance group, what are your plans? Like, what are you building right now? How does this market shifts affect you? How do you address them? What you building, and especially what you're betting about the future?
Yeah. So, really what we're leaning into right now, our founder, Bill Matthews, really built the brand and the business on thought leadership and education and being at the forefront of the franchising industry, and sometimes even being a contrarian to, what others in the marketplace were saying. And so we're in the process of leaning back into that. We're actually refreshing some educational content and going to be putting that out later this year. Also looking at building out, further infrastructure from just a team standpoint on our end as we really look to, take hold of the marketplace. I think we'll really lean into some of our sales capabilities. We've got a fantastic team, and so I think it's leveraging those individuals, implementing technology where possible to make them go further, but then also really investing in our infrastructure. I think it's a really exciting time. We mentioned right before you and I jumped on, I just joined Franchise Performance Group in 2025. So growth is at the forefront, but sustainable growth is the goal. And so doing it the right way, and it starts from the inside of our business. And so that's really where my focus has been. And who knows, maybe one day that longer term vision, you and I will be unveiling the marketplace for the franchising industry.
Who knows? Like, if could you jump into details? Like, what exactly is it like you're trying to build inside? Like by saying the
Yeah.
platform, like, do you have like what's that? If you could
Yeah.
share.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I think historically, we have run as a very lean organization, and for good reasons. But as we look out, at our clients' needs and also the skill sets of our team. We have the capabilities and capacity to bring on more clients and grow. In order to do that, we can't we can't always do what we've always done. To the point earlier that I mentioned, we see it in our clients. What worked to get us to where we are in 2026 isn't necessarily going to be the same strategy that is going to get us to where we want to be in 2036. And some of that is investing in additional talent and some skill sets. We've recently brought on a dedicated content strategist who produces, multiple monthly content pieces, updating ad creatives. We're driving more leadership, actually interviewing some new leadership over the coming weeks to really be able to scale. So there's some things still working through, on what that all, on the specifics. But growth, and I think it starts with building a moat around what we're really good at and expanding our capabilities in areas that have high synergy with that.
The content team, you mean like is it like for your marketing or is it for clients marketing?
Both. So we treat Franchise Performance Group as a client. So yeah. So and it's also the joke is the builder's house is never finished. So at the end of the month, when we look at, hey, we've got to get content out, we've got to do this, as the first one that gets pushed to the bottom is Franchise Performance Group. Yeah, and that's obviously, we're always willing to sacrifice our own publicity to make sure that our clients are coming first. And so that's where, that's a part of that building out the structure, is to ensure that the love and attention that we give our clients, we can also do for our own business to ensure that we're investing in growth.
Awesome. Like great. Yeah, that sounds like a really healthy approach, and like you just do what you do. And yeah. Is there like that was really great conversation for me. I learned a lot today about franchises and it's really interesting. So we should discuss it further.
Yes.
Is there anything else you would like to add on top of that we discussed?
No, I just listening back in my head, I think the only other change that I would say that I've seen in the marketplace has been private equity coming into the franchising world a lot heavier over the last handful of years. And so some of the dynamics and landscape changes have been driven by private equity coming in and professionalizing the businesses and requiring a lot more visibility and efficiency from an operations and financing standpoint. So that's obviously changed a lot of things. I think that'll only increase. Franchising is one of those industries that tends to be, if you don't have direct experience within it, you seem to be considered an outsider. And so it's really easy to keep people outside of it. But I think it's going to open up more and more. And I'm a big believer of having the right people in the right seats, regardless of their experience or industry tie-in. So that'll be a shifting, I think, a continued shifting landscape that we'll see private equity in the space as well.
By the way, since you mentioned that, it sounds like somebody has more money to bring into the play, but I'm also hearing that like people having less money in terms like I'm interviewing a lot the travel industry, people from travel industry, and they see the trend that people saving more, maybe because they have less money, because they are more cautious about where they spend money. But like it's not about like franchisees themselves, because rather do your clients experience in their like networks of restaurants and so on, do they experience any kind of decline in?
Yeah, in discretionary spending areas like food, there's definitely be trends to that. But I will say the best brands that we work with are still seeing year over year increases on the top line without requiring price increases. Sometimes I laugh when you hear somebody had year over year revenue and then you say, oh, well, you raised costs 20%. Of course, revenue was driven up, but that's not necessarily been a requirement of that. I think, we're seeing it some on the investment side of franchising with new franchise buyers coming in. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's lowered the number of franchises that get sold on an annual basis, but it definitely makes the diligence process a lot more important. People are really looking into the financial aspects of the investment and the return on their investment. It's less what we would call passion players, so people who are enamored with a brand or a product or a service and just want to be a part of it. Very much more, they like the brand, but tell me how I'm going to perform from a financial standpoint, which again I think is only beneficial and helps. The brands that deserve that recognition and praise and growth are going to get that because they have more proof of concept.
Okay. Awesome. That's hypothesis I wanted to just to check, and since you mentioned money, and yeah, interesting observation. Awesome. Thanks a lot, Nick, for coming over. It was a really great discussion, and best of luck for you in this role, since you just recently started, and best of luck for your company. Thanks a
Fantastic.
lot.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, me too. Cheers.